Well, here it is. Card updates. One card got changed. And it's Pack Your Bags, which is the card that gets created from Go Hard. We'll talk about that in a second. So first off, card updates. We will be aiming to make balance changes based on our metagame analysis and community feedback on a monthly basis. However, as with all live development, this may not be true for every single month. We may occasionally make off-cadence changes, such as this change to Pack Your Bags coming in 2.0, which was originally planned for a release in 2.1.0 in February. So before we read the Pack Your Bags change, I do want to say that it's interesting that well, first off, the monthly basis thing, if you've been in the Legends of Runeterra community for a while, if you've been playing the game for a while, going all the way back to open beta, this was always their intended schedule, because it was like that for a while. And then, but we did have a period where it felt like every 2 weeks we were getting card changes, like multiple card changes. Some patches would be smaller than others, but still. But normally this patch, we wouldn't see any card changes. We would have to wait until the next patch, which would actually be a balance change, a balance patch. So basically it goes balance patch, non-balance patch, balance patch, non-balance patch. So balance patches should only be, they're only meant to be once a month, which is good. I think that's healthy. I think every 2 weeks is too much. You could argue once a month is too much, actually, but I think that depends on the card game you're playing. But yeah, so this is the off cadence month where we actually get a card change that they pushed it up. So this, we weren't supposed to get this change for another 2 weeks, according to what's showing here on the blog. It's gonna be another 2 weeks before so we weren't supposed to see this till what, the end of January, I believe. Yeah, the end of January. But we're getting this now, which is fine. I'm a fan of it. I like it overall. I don't know, like, I'm still a little indifferent about this change anyway. But anyway, we'll go into Pack Your Bags. So Pack Your Bags is going from 1 mana cost to 5 mana cost. When players are able to transform Go Hard, the Pack Your Bags form frequently creates a situation which is unmanageable to play against given its board impact compared to cost. There should be a powerful payoff when players are able to successfully transform Go Hards, but it should give the opposing player more meaningful counterplay options leading up to Pack Your Bags. Okay, so the last sentence, reading it initially, I don't necessarily agree with more meaningful counterplay options leading up to Pack Your Bags. I think the counterplay options are going to be the same, because literally nothing changes until the player actually plays Pack Your Bags. I think it's probably more meaningful counterplay after it happens or during the Pack Your Bags, maybe on the Pack Your Bags turn where they're going to do it, then sure. Then again, I guess from a psychological standpoint of the player trying to play against it or play around it, they might make different plays that way. Like they have more room to like play other cards, because now they know the Pack Your Bags is going to cost 5 mana instead of 1 mana, and then you're not behind as far as like your mana advantage, because mana advantage is very important in this game. Usually the whoever spends their mana last wins in Legends of Runeterra in general. Not always. That's not always the case, but it's kind of a golden rule. Something, you know, you find out as you play the game more. Like in general, whoever spends mana last wins. Legends of Runeterra is a game that heavily rewards defensive play, whereas proactive play and more aggressive play not so much. Which is why I don't know why people complain about aggro decks when like you're literally playing a game that favors control decks, favors not spending mana. But anyway, that's not gonna go off on a tangent on that one. Anywho, so I'm kind of fine with this change, but kind of a little indifferent, only because the only reason why is just my own personal experience on ladder. Like last season, I found a deck that consistently beat Go Hard that I enjoyed playing. So I was just jamming that for the past 2 months or so. I haven't been playing nearly as much this season so far though. But that should change. Translation: Karma's not yet been deleted. Be mad at that. Yeah, I mean, what sucks is Karma's coming back too. Zoe Karma is coming up, and I don't like it. I'm not happy. Zoe Karma's making a case as like, nah, Zoe Lee Sin is not the best Targon Ionia deck. I am the best Targon Ionia deck, not that one. They play pretty similar. I mean, the win con's different, obviously, but Karma is probably more, the Karma version is more of like a control deck. It probably plays more like a control deck than Lee Sin, which is like pure combo. But anyway. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm indifferent about it a little bit, because it's like I kind of already found a deck, and I feel like I've realized like what it takes to beat Go Hard. Like if you're playing a slower deck, you're just not gonna beat Go Hard. And people that like to play slower, more controlling decks, I think those are the people that complain about Go Hard, or just people that like they're just tired of seeing it too. That as well, which I can understand. I feel like people have been playing Go Hard less ever since the new set. But that might have been during a time where people were experimenting with the new cards, so they can't. And now that time period has passed, some people probably have just gone back to Go Hard. But the other funny thing too about this change is that I remember when the KDA cards were first revealed during that event that was happening. I remember seeing Go Hard and then reading it, and then I went to read Pack Your Bags, and the first question that popped up in my mind after I read Pack Your Bags was, why doesn't this cost 5 mana? That was literally the first question I asked myself. Because in my mind, like when I see numbers on cards, like especially something like Pack Your Bags like this, like something that deals damage, like when I read deal 5 to all enemies and the enemy nexus, my brain, like I guess just from playing so many other card games, my brain just immediately goes, okay, this deals 5 damage. Why doesn't it cost 5? Why does it cost 1 to not only deal 5 damage to one thing, 5 damage to all enemy targets? So it hits your face and it hits your entire board for 5 damage. And it costs 1. That's kind of dumb. But anyway, I don't say that to be like, to sound like a genius, like, oh, I'm smarter than everybody else. No, it's just like, I think anybody that plays card games long enough, they would have thought this, they would think the same thing. Why doesn't this cost 5 mana? But I think the main reason why is because Go Hard does require setup. So like you have to draw them, play them 3 times, and then you have to draw the 4th one to even get this effect. So, but now we have a deck that abuses that with a ton of card draw. The other interesting thing about this is that with Pack Your Bags costing 5 mana, you can't search for Pack Your Bags with Zap Sprayfin anymore with the Go Hard deck. That was the main reason why Go Hard was so consistent in what it did, because it had a ton of card filtering. So you'd be able to just run through your deck with all these card draw effects, get access to your Go Hards, play your Go Hards, and then once you transformed your Go Hards to Pack Your Bags, you would play Zap Sprayfin, and Zap Sprayfin, when it comes into play, you draw any spell out of your deck that costs 3 or less. So Pack Your Bags costing 1 mana counted as one of those spells. So, and when I played against Go Hard, it was often enough where people would just hit Pack Your Bags off of the Zap Sprayfin that they just played. but now you can't do that. I think that's actually huge. So I think Go Hard is still a good deck, even with this change, but they might cut Zap Sprayfin. They might need to just run more card filtering now instead of Zap Sprayfin, which will definitely be less powerful. Like, just drawing a bunch of cards is not as good as being able to practically tutor, which is what the search your deck for a card that costs X, or search your deck for a card named X is. It's long been called a tutor effect. It's an old Magic the Gathering lingo that literally came from a card that had tutor in its name. So that's why they just called them tutor effects. But Zap Sprayfin is kind of that. It's not 100% that, because it's pulling from a pool of cards that cost X or less. So it's never going to pull the exact card you want every single time, but there's a very good chance you would pull Pack Your Bags. So the only other spell that the standard Go Hard deck runs that costs 3 mana or less is Glimpse Beyond. Every other spell they run costs 4 mana or more. So you literally had a 50% chance to hit Pack Your Bags. That's just going off the standard Mobalytics list. I don't think going off other tier lists like the one on Swim's website, I think his is pretty much the same. Just looking it up right now. Yeah, it's literally the same. The Mobalytics list runs one more spell than the one on swimstream.com, but the spell makeup's almost exactly the same. Both decks, they only run Glimpse Beyond as their other cheap spell. So you're either going, every time you played Zap Sprayfin, you would either hit Glimpse Beyond or Pack Your Bags. You're flipping a coin. So now you can't do that. So instead of Zap, you're probably gonna have to run more card draw. Don't know what other card draw you could run. I think Go Hard, they might run pretty much everything that they can run. There might be some card draw spell somewhere that I'm not thinking of right now that they're not running that they could run. I'll say this just as a quick aside. I think Fortune Croaker in that deck needs to be looked at. Nobody talks about Fortune Croaker, but I remember Mogwai was talking about it on Twitter, and I was like, yeah, fam, it's kind of broken. You know, Crimson Disciple was a 2-mana 2/3 in Noxus that you ping it and it dealt 2 damage to your Nexus. To the enemy Nexus. Everyone complained about that. No one likes getting hit in the face, but when it comes to like actual card draw, it's the same thing, almost the exact same thing, but you draw a card instead. Everyone's cool with that. It's kind of weird. And I don't know about you guys, but pretty sure card draw is way better than dealing 2 damage, just in general. So Fortune Croaker probably needs to be looked at if it hasn't already. It's kind of busted. I would argue it's even more busted than Crimson Disciple was. But again, people say it's a hot take. Whereas my reply would be, no, you just don't like getting hit in the face early on and often. You like your card draw. It's a lot of card gamers like their card draw. We love card draw. Now, if you have a full hand and 0 HP, listen, I mean, I get it. The object of the card game is to get them to 0 HP. Is to take their health number from whatever amount you start at and bring it to 0. That is how you win the game 95% of the time. But that still doesn't mean that 2 damage to the Nexus for pinging your own unit is better than drawing a card, a whole card for pinging your own unit. 2 units, but the damage gets split up. Well, I'll say one more thing. I was gonna say that was all I had for Go Hard. What does this mean for the metagame? I think one of two things will happen. Either people will continue to play Go Hard. Well, if deck builders can find a suitable replacement for Zap Spray Fin to where maybe not, the deck isn't as good, but it still functions and it still works well, we will still see Go Hard even going forward. If they can't, what's going to happen is the same thing that happened kind of with Lee Sin a little bit back when Lee Sin was like the top deck. This nerf will go live. Players will not touch it with a 39.5 foot pole. Maybe someone will get the reference of what I said. And then weeks and months later, we will realize, wait a minute, Go Hard is still good. We just didn't see, there's like some card interaction or some other card that the community didn't think of that we could actually play in the Go Hard deck. And then it'll do well, and then people go back to playing Go Hard. Lee Sin was the same thing, although it took additional cards coming out for Lee Sin to really take off again. But there was that time period where people just kind of got off Lee Sin after Lee Sin was like literally everywhere, at least at the higher ranks. Because we do tend to do that, like, oh, nerf comes in and like we automatically think the card's bad because it got nerfed. When I feel like more often than not, that's not the case. You just need to find a different way to have your deck function. Like look at other cards and interactions and things like that and combinations. But sometimes those things take time. But yeah, that's my metagame analysis on it. Either we'll keep seeing it now or it'll go away for a while and then it'll pop back up. So either way, Go Hard will either stay or it'll go away, but it'll be back.